Hi everyone, Pastry Chef here. Today we're going to talk to you about the Tyranids, the alien invaders from outside the galaxy. They have come here to consume our biomass. The way that the Tyranids operate is they absorb the biomass of their great foes, making them stronger as they proceed. It means that they get stronger and stronger as all the best possible traits are consumed. And the problem is that I've been saying this for a while and no one's listened to me. No one's listened to me, and yet it still keeps happening. Welcome back everyone to another faction focus with another brand new Codex, the Great Devourer. Featuring the Tyranids Codex.
I'm so hyped to finally have this. And also kind of scared.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
We'll get to that later. Thank you Games Workshop for sending us this copy to review. And Freeview fans, this is not all. If you go over to our website right now, you can have a look at our Tactica guides. Please go and have a look. I spend many sleepless nights writing them, which contains every single bit of detail that you will need in terms of changes and updates. So if we don't touch upon it in this video, because we want to try and keep it as succinct as possible, it will be there. On-demand fans, and if you're not an on-demand boss already, go to our website and sign up. We have hundreds of videos, but we will also be having today a top 5 units video and next week a top 5 combos video as well. So lots to look at, lots to delve into.
Lots to devour.
I was going to say sink our teeth into, but yes, we'll go with the devouring joke. That will do. And if you're just here on Freeview enjoying this video, make sure to check out the game that we have going on concurrently and leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you have not done so already. But today is indeed an auspicious day for you.
Yes.
You have been waiting a long time.
Yeah, for about like a year for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And yeah, like I said, a little bit terrified because, oh boy, Tyranids have had a glow up.
Yes.
A very sweet glow up.
Yes, it is that they're quite punchy and shooty and choppy and
Psychically
mind blasty and tough and
yeah,
yes.
Everything.
Yes.
What do Tyranids want? Yes.
Yes. What do Tyranids do? Yes. So what we'll do is we're going to start off in our usual fashion. For those of you that are only just watching a top 5, it is a top 5 in terms of categories, because if we went through just 5 changes, there'd be like, it'd be 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
So, we break it down. All the timestamps will be below, but we're going to kick it off with the army rules. So we will kick off with just some really pretty basic stuff, which if you've been following along with any of the 9th edition codexes, you can probably recognize these. All your troops get obsec, not really a change, and you can have 1 Hive Tyrant per detachment. This is pretty similar with things like 1 Demon Prince, 1 Captain. It's also a good thing for balance because Hive Tyrants are really good now, finally.
And that also includes Swarmlord because they do have the Hive Tyrant keybind.
Funny that, being that he is Hive Tyrant Grande.
Yes. So that's the basic stuff.
Yes.
The changes to some of the more Tyranidy bits, for example, your Synapse range is now 6 inches instead of 12 for your auto-passing morale. Instinctive behavior is gone, doesn't exist, never really came up in games anyway, not going to make too much of a difference. That's fine. Your Shadow in the Warp is now an aura, so it can be manipulated and get switched off if you're doing actions. It is the same, subtract 1 from psychic tests taken for an enemy unit within 18 inches, although when an enemy unit suffers perils of the warp, they suffer an additional mortal wound.
Yeah, it's a new little thing. It's nice. The thing of it making it an aura is good for just quality of life. The Synapse change is massive, however. I mean, it's still auto-pass morale, which is fantastic. But
much smaller range.
The much smaller range does make it a little bit trickier to keep your little gribblies around. Yeah. On the flip side, failing morale is not that scary, so it doesn't really matter.
It's not too big. I will say for people who do play Tyranids a lot already, it's going to be a little shift in the brain because spoiler alert, I've already played the game. I kept forgetting that my Synapse range had reduced, and I was like, send them off to die.
Oh, no.
Synapse, oh no, I'm gonna have to pull everything back. And it's just gonna be one of those things that you have to shift gear in your head because so used to it being 12 inches. There is a new rule that will be on some of your units called swarming masses. So each time this unit fights, the models in the unit can fight if they are within engagement range of enemy units. Pretty standard. But also if they're within 2.5 inches of enemy units.
Yeah, it effectively gives you an extra rank of fighting.
And then finally, Death from Below is your deep strike. It's literally just deep strike by a different name.
Those are your datasheet abilities. And then, of course, you've got a new-ish ability. It was in the, was it one of the Octarius books?
It was Octarius, the first Octarius book.
Octarius the first.
The Synaptic link abilities. So the Synaptic link is pretty much the same in terms of how you work it out. You can bounce certain things between Synapse creatures that are 12 inches away, and it can affect things within 12 inches of Synapse. So effectively you can bounce these certain abilities all across the board.
Yeah. The difference is now your commands, like phase abilities that you have in your datasheet, psychic powers, certain warlord traits, I believe, off the top of my head, I think.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's really powerful, not only because of the bouncing, but because it's a basic 12-inch range.
Yeah.
You want to give like reroll ones to hit with something, it's usually 6. For some reason, it's 12 hit. I get it from a fluff perspective. It's because they're all one big giant brain entity, but it's very powerful. I think it's going to be tricky to utilize well, though.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The way the Synapse creatures are in the new book, I think you're going to want to be flooding the board with a lot of Synapse anyway. I mean, you think about warriors being Synapse creatures.
More on them later.
You got Zoanthropes, so you've got things really in every position that could be a Synapse creature for you. So if you're planning for it, you can really manipulate it so that you can literally do whatever you want anywhere on the board at any given time.
And then we have your pure army rule, which is your super doctrine, your strands of fate, your tactical philosophy, your martial qatar, whatever you want to call it, your pure army rule, and it is synaptic imperatives.
So the synaptic link abilities are gone as they are replaced by synaptic imperatives, which don't actually use the synaptic link, which
is for the best.
Absolutely, it's for the better. So every synaptic creature has a unique ability. For example, the Hive Tyrant will allow anything within 6 inches of a Synapse creature to fall back and charge. You choose a synaptic imperative to be active for your entire army at the beginning of the battle round. It is active for that battle round only, and once it is done, you cannot pick that synaptic imperative again. It is a once per game thing.
So one and done deal.
Yes. But there are some pretty powerful ones in there.
Yeah, it's a good thing that they're a one and done deal. So, yeah, so similar to the Synapse ability itself, these are not auras, so these can never be turned off. They can't be extended. Well, I think there's a Warlord trait which can extend it on that Warlord. You know, fine. So they will always affect everything within 6, regardless of any other rules that are going on.
Within 6 of any Synapse creature, it doesn't have to be the one that cast it.
Exactly. So let's use your Hive Tyrant example here. I've got a unit of warriors that are halfway across the board. They get that ability as well. So everything within 6 inches of those warriors, and remember, you can do it on yourself as well, will be able to fall back and charge. Now that's a pretty powerful ability. And the flexibility of it is choosing at the start of the battle round. So you go, well, if I've got turn 2 and I'm in combat with a lot of my combat units, but they're tied up with stuff that they don't want to fight, I'll activate it this round. So you've got some good flexibility. It'll take some getting used to. There's some which are very good, there's some which are fun, but then we'll get to the Zoanthropes, everyone. Do you like playing against Harlequins with their 4-up invuln army wide? Would you like those Harlequins to be toughness 8 monsters with 15 wounds? Zoanthropes have got you covered. So they give 4-up invuns to every monster that is within 6 inches of a Synapse creature, or a 5-up invuln if they're not a monster. So you will now have termagants running around with a 5-up invuln. Now it is only for one battle round, but that's probably all you need.
Yeah, I mean, you get first turn and you know you're going to be hit hard. I'm just going to activate my invuls, so you can't actually kill me.
You're not nearly doing as much as you thought you were. No. So yeah, and this is like the Synaptic Imperative. Again, it's one of those really cool, fluffy abilities that I really like, and it's a really nice way of sort of exemplifying the control, like the overriding control that the Hive Mind has.
I mean, the whole book itself, like all of these rules, they're really, really fluffy and make me very excited as a Tyranid player. There's just so much.
So many of them. It's like, it makes AdMech look silly. Yeah. The amount of command phase abilities, the amount of stacking buffs, the amount of these kinds of abilities. At least they're somewhat limited with the 6-inch range. But again, as you say, you're going to want a lot of Synapse.
I mean, you're looking at these. My first thought when I'm doing a list at the moment is, which synaptic imperative abilities do I want in this game?
Yeah.
There are going to be things that are going to be auto-take for competitive. Just, for example, the Zoanthropes with their synaptic imperative ability are so good. And because you're going to be writing lists with these in mind, you're going to be having even more Synapse in your list.
Yeah, definitely. So, and some of them won't come up in every game. They won't be necessary in every game. So things like the Malicept, the Psychic Oversight, really cool. You can perform actions if you've advanced, you can perform actions if you've fallen back, you can still perform actions and shoot, you can do a psychic action and still cast. That's really, really cool and quite a wide range spread about, but it's quite specific.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those ones where you go, you know what, I don't actually need to do Raise the Banners in this game, so I've not got any actions to do, so I don't need to activate the Maliceptor's ability, which is fine. There's others which are, I'm going to do this every game without fail. So that is a bit of a, not an issue, it's just one of those things where I look at it and I go, like you say, you kind of go, what ones am I going to take? Yeah. And there are going to be auto takes. Yeah. I think if you are running a competitive Tyranid, and we're talking competitive, and you're not running a minimum of 3 Zoanthropes, you're probably going to want to run more, we'll get to them later. You're making a mistake. Yep. Because a 5-up Invan pretty much army-wide, or a 4-up if you're a monster, is really so strong. It's ludicrous how good it is. So yeah, the synaptic imperative abilities are very good. They are very strong in certain situations, but there's definitely some that you need to 100% account for in your list. So those are kind of the main army rules. And you may have noticed, but Chef, but Jinx, where's the Hive Fleet abilities? Well, if you have looked at the timestamps, you'll see that it is coming up right now.
Into the specific Hive Fleets, there is a whole new mechanic with your Hive Fleets, which is your infinite biomorphologies. Now, for every Hive Fleet, there is a table of 3 different types of biomorphologies. You've got Hunt, you've got Lurk, and you've got Feed. Now, every single Hive Fleet can switch out one of its traits to be one of the adapted infinite biomorphologies. You can only pick from 2 of them, though. It changes for each Hive Fleet depending on what it's meant to be doing.
You might only have access to Hunt and Lurk. You might only have access to Hunt and Feed. Access mainframe. You might only have access to Feed and Lurk, for example. Yes. And there is a set ability which can be changed. Now, here's the kicker. When do you change it, Jinx?
Before the first battle round, after you figured out who's going first. Yeah. It doesn't have to be written on your list.
It really should be.
You can change it every single game if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's really, really, I mean, here's the thing. Some of them are kind of, some of them are going to be useful for like that one turn, but others are going to be so strong for your army build that you're going to do it regardless. I think Jormungandr is definitely the one where you'd probably swap out their adaptive ability pretty much every game. It's cool, but it's not great. You basically count as half the number of models in your unit for blast. I mean, who cares? Like, realistically, when you could swap that out for, I don't know, ignore AP1.
That's pretty nice.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a couple of really powerful ones in there. Fall back and shoot with a -1 penalties in there.
That's pretty sweet. You've got make an extra 3-inch move when you consolidate.
Yep, which is nice.
If you fail a charge, you get to make a normal move of up to 3 inches.
Yeah, that one's busted. I'm calling it now. It is absolutely broken. And the reason being is because as follows, guys. You can just make a charge that you know you're going to fail and then move 3 inches out of line of sight, away from counter charges, onto an objective. There's no requirement to move towards the target of your charge or towards the nearest enemy unit. That is so powerful because board control is so important. So here's the problem with that. I get what they're going for thematically. It's you fail a charge, but they're overwhelmed by the adrenaline and the
point is to keep going towards your enemy. No one's going to use it that way.
People will go, I'm going to make this 12-inch charge. Oh, I failed it onto that objective.
Oopsie.
But there's some very powerful abilities in there that can be swapped out. But let's talk about the main Hive Fleets themselves. They're all still in here. We're not going to talk about all of them because I covered them in depth in the Tactica articles, but we're going to pick our favorites each. They all pretty much do similar to the previous one. So Behemoth is still about making the charge.
Yeah.
Kraken is about being fast. Leviathan does what though?
So Leviathan,
Being tough?
sneak preview, it's my favorite. Yeah, it's always been about being tough. So the old Leviathan rule was if you're within 6 inches of a Synapse creature, you had a 6-up shrug. That's cool, that's nice. Yeah, the new Leviathan is, all of your Synapse units have transhuman and everything that's non-Synapse has mini transhuman. So now all of a sudden you got a warrior with transhuman.
All the time. We need to think of the name for it so that me and Beard can do
There is a name, it's, Synaptic Control.
Doesn't really work.
There is a stratagem that gives
We're skipping ahead a little bit, but this is important.
We're going to skip ahead. There is a stratagem which gives a monster a transhuman. I will let you read it.
Indomitable monstrosity.
Thank you.
That's a good one. I like that one.
I can't do the voice.
You can't.
I can't.
Try it.
I can't.
Do it. The people at home demand nonsense.
Indomitable. I can't.
Indomitable monster. Right. We'll come back to that. It's a work in progress. So the next bit. So that's the first
That's
two
the
bits.
main bit. The adaptive one that you can change is each time a unit with this adaptation is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll one hit roll when resolving that unit's attacks.
I mean, that's still pretty good. Like if you're
One
going.
hit roll's pretty nice.
Yeah, if you're going for like big hitters, like what are they called? Tyrannofexes.
Yes.
You know, Tyrannofexes, Exocrines,
Being able to
stuff
reroll
with
hit
venom
roll.
cannons.
Pretty
That's
nice.
quite handy and it will stack up over time. But you can swap that out for a feed or a hunt biomorphology. Such as the aforementioned -1 to hit for shooting, but you've just fallen back and you're still allowed to do so.
Yeah, and also the normal move if you fail a charge.
So again, you can see the flexibility of that already. You kind of go reroll, like most armies would go, a reroll, hit roll. That's pretty good, right? But there's going to be times where you go, yeah, but also I've got like 90 termagants. Like, what's one reroll there? I don't care. But doing something else is much better. Then you've got, like, as you'd expect, your Warlord trait, your Stratagem, your...
Psychic power?
Yeah, you do get a Psychic power. All
Relic.
of your Psychers get a Psychic power that they know in addition to every other power, and a Relic as will.
So for Leviathan, your Warlord trait is perfectly adapted. Once per battle round, you can reroll one of the following. For just your Warlord: hit roll, win roll, damage roll, advance roll, charge roll, psychic test, or saving throw. So it's one free reroll.
Yeah, they get a free
round.
command reroll per battle round. But it's okay.
It's all
There's
right.
much better Warlord traits in the general thing.
Absolutely. The psychic power is Hive Nexus. It's warp charge 7, and you select one friendly Leviathan unit within Synaptic link range.
That will
and
be
you
a recurring theme as well.
Select one Synaptic imperative ability of a friendly Leviathan Synapse monster that's also within Synaptic link range of the Psyker, and until the start of your next turn, that unit benefits from that Synaptic imperative ability as if it were active for your army and as if they were within 6 inches of one another. Now, I've just noticed that that isn't limited to you can't do it if it's already been used.
Correct. So, you know that zone thrope thing of
that
giving a
4-up
4-up
invuln?
invuln? Yeah, just do that every turn on a, I don't know, Tyrannofex, or, I don't know,
Blech.
Exocrine,
Blech.
or, you know, like that fallback and charge. So it is high warp charge 7, but the Synaptic imperatives are really quite good.
So your bio-artifact is called the Preceptic Node. So essentially in the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase, if they deep strike in, if any enemy unit is set up as reinforcements within 18 inches of the bearer of that relic, you can select one friendly core or character within 6 inches of the bearer, and they get to shoot as if it were the shooting phase. And you can do that multiple times if they bring in multiple units.
Now, you can't do it with the same unit
You can't do it with the
twice.
same unit twice, so one unit can only shoot once, but if I've got Horde Termagants all around a Termagon, for example.
It's quite a niche one, but it's one of those ones where it can be just utterly game-wrecking for your opponent.
Yeah, and it also acts as a nice deterrent.
Then you got your Stratagem.
So Combined Assault, in the fight phase, you select one enemy unit with an engagement range of 2 or more Leviathan units from your army, and until the end of the phase, each time you make a melee attack against them, you get an extra AP.
Sometimes with certain units you probably don't need,
Yeah.
but it can be really good. And it's sometimes that you just kind of go, you know what, I could really do with an extra AP on my Bone Sword.
Why
of
not
Quick
for
Warriors.
one command
I'll
point?
send in some Ripper Swarms, lol. And they suddenly get an extra AP.
Really Sweet.
So for 1 CP, it's pretty good. So that's Leviathan.
Yes.
You've then got Gorgon. So yeah, it's all about wounding and poison.
Yep.
Similar. Jormungandr is pretty similar. It's, you know, you've got like the cover against ranged attacks. Then we've got Kronos.
All about the shooting.
All about the shooty bugs.
Adding 4 inches to the range of your range weapons.
Yeah, and half. If you're in half range, it's AP +1, which is very nice for your shooting. So it's all about shooting and anti-psyker. Again, nothing has drastically changed in terms of their theme. They're just stronger. Then we get Hydra, which is my favorite. So again, this is all about the swarm and the speed and the big gribblies, or the little gribblies going in big blobs. So effectively, you get +1 to hit if you outnumber the enemy unit in combat. Vehicles and monsters count as 5 models for this. So that works both ways. So if you've got a unit of 4 warriors fighting a dreadnought, you won't get the +1. But if you've got a Hive Tyrant fighting a single Space Marine captain, you're going to get a +1.
That's nice.
You might not need it on like a Hive Tyrant, but if you're degraded, it helps, right? In addition, your adaptive bit, so this is one you can swap out. And this is one of those ones, contrary to Leviathan, where I'm actually a bit like, maybe I don't want to swap this one out. You get +1 to your +1 to your move and +3 to consolidations to a maximum of 9 inches, because there's other ways to boost consolidates.
Zoom bugs!
You are very fast. So that's one of those ones where you go, I'm not looking at that going, I'm always going to want to swap this out. But you can swap it out for some pretty good ones, like the 3-inch move after a failed charge one. Keeping with the theme of the many heads of the Hydra Dominatus, your Warlord trait is Endless Regeneration, so you just heal D3 wounds at the start of your command phase. Psychic Power is Psychic Shriek. This is a bit of a weird one. You pick an enemy unit within Synaptic link range, it's warp charge 6, and then you roll a d6 for each of your friendly models within 3 inches of that enemy unit. Rolling 1d6 if they're infantry or beasts, or 3d6 if they're monsters, and then for each 5+, they take 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. There's a lot of hoops to jump through there.
This feels overly complicated. I'm trying to do the maths in my brain.
That Relic is kind of mediocre, to be fair. My favourite things about this is that trait. That trait is really quite good.
Yeah.
The Relic basically allows you to re-roll wound rolls with your ranged attacks. Fine. Whatever. And then Critical Mass, which is your stratagem, is 1 CP. When a Hydra unit is selected to fight, if you outnumber them, you can re-roll the wound roll.
That's pretty sweet.
Yes, although incidentally that doesn't count the vehicle monster counted as 5 models bit.
No.
Because that is a separate rule. So your big gribblies are never going to get that, but likewise a unit of warriors that are fighting like 1 vehicle is going to get it.
Get that. That's nice.
So yeah. It's pretty good.
It's all about the swarm.
So overall, the Hive Fleets have gotten better, as you have kind of come to expect with 9th edition codexes. Everything is kind of the same thematically, just more powerful.
Ramped up.
And
100.
yes, again, we're not going to go through every single change here because we'd be here forever. But knowing the infinite biomorphologies is going to be absolutely crucial to playing with NIDS, because the flexibility and the options that it opens up for you are... they're crazy.
Literally infinite.
Well, I mean, maybe not infinite, because you've got
I was more making a play on the fact that they're called infinite biomorphologies, Chef.
Well, I mean, there's 5 in each table, and
they're infinite.
You've got 2 tables that you can
infinite possibilities.
choose from.
I can do anything I want.
Maybe like 25-ish possibilities. So let's talk about all of the extra stuff that makes the army quite more powerful than it already is. Things like your stratagems and your upgrades. So a lot of the stratagems are, again, as you'd expect, similar in terms of their function, but have changed in terms of what they realistically do. Some of them are pretty much identical.
Some of them are just gone. No more shoot twice or fight twice.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
You don't need that.
You don't need it.
No, you really don't.
You do not need that. No more, please.
Bye.
And a lot of the stuff, so things like the pathogenic slime, it's at +1 damage to your shooting monsters. It's kind of been rolled into a lot of their base stats anyway. So it's still there, but it just does something completely different now.
Yeah.
So things like that are there. Your Ferocious Appetite, like reroll wounds with a monster, is there.
It's the same.
Death Frenzy does the same functionality of fighting on death with a character, but it's now
you can't
cleaned
do it.
up.
Yep.
So
you can't do it if you explode.
Yeah.
You count as being in a top wounds bracket.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice because previously
it was ambiguous, wasn't it?
Yeah, you just fought.
Yeah.
So as 2 command points.
Yeah, you can't do it if you've already fought. Like, this is all standard stuff.
Yeah. You do have a stratagem called Synaptic Legacy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if we mentioned, for the Synaptic imperative abilities, the Synapse creature has to be on the board for you to do it. What Synaptic Legacy allows you to do is that if your Synapse creature died before you could use its Synaptic imperative ability and you really want to use it, you pay 1 command point. And you can. Yeah, so you're not even having to keep them alive.
Yeah, your Warlord does need to still be alive.
Yes.
So, but it basically, it goes down to, well, I'm not going to use my warp shielding from my Zoanthropes turn 1 because I've hidden a lot of my stuff. And then your opponent goes, haha, well, I have stealth suit teams and I'm going to drop zone clear with my Farsight Enclave on turn 1 and I have nuked them. Ha, no invuns for you. And then you go, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway for 1 CP. I mean, what's counterplay, right? So you've got some nice utility ones there like that.
You've got mortal wounds on the charge.
Yeah.
With trampling charge.
Yeah, here's an interesting one because at time of filming, we don't know whether things like Crusher Stampede are still
Yeah, we've not had
allowed,
that clarified, so...
Which is odd because there's a lot of stratagems in here which are similar, if not basically from the Crusher Stampede. So being able to do them twice is a bit gnarly.
But I mean, if you want to see shenanigans like that happen, we do have a game coming out very soon with all of the rules, the Leviathan supplement, the Crusher Stampede. That is going to be out very shortly on demand if you do want to head over and, you know, sign up and see that shenanigans.
How many books would you like there, Katie?
Yes.
Yes is the answer. And I have no sympathy for anyone that runs their multiple books because that's your choice, everyone. We then come to, again, some other things. So things like Opportunistic Advance, the Kraken one. What was it? What did it used to be called? The general one?
The Opportunistic Advance?
Yeah, it was the one where you advance, but like you would take mortal wounds.
Yeah, so you can move again,
I
believe, but you took mortal wounds, and I don't think you could charge that turn.
You couldn't do anything else that turn. So that's gone, but now you've got Bounding Advance, which is Hormigaunt. And again, here's the weird things with the stratagems. Some of them are actually really quite good because they're what I think stratagems should be, which is quite specific, right?
I mean, these 2 whole pages are mostly just niche stratagems that you can only use either on specific units or something with a specific keyword.
Sporecaster, well, that's Venomthropes and Toxicrines. Hormigaunts, Toxicrines only. Acid Blood, which is, I think, your Horospecs and your Pyrovores. Or Pyrovores. Acid Maw, which is like 3 units.
Have that? Well, they can have it.
Yeah, G-Sealers can have that, Pyrovores and Carnifexes can have an upgrade. So they're quite specific stratagems. So the Bounding Advance is now Hormigaunts only. They now auto-advance 6, but they can charge. They've already got a 10-inch base move. So
16-inch move and being able to charge.
Yeah, and that's before you start adding other movement abilities like Adrenal Glands, which give them +1, or being Hydra for another +1, or the Tervigan Synaptic Imperative to give them +2. So yeah, they're quick.
How much movement do you want, Chef?
Yes, but it's constrained to 1 unit. Now imagine if that was on, say, a Flying Hive Tyrant.
No, I do not want to think about that.
Some of the stratagems are kind of neither here nor there. So, I mean, Psychotropic Venom is like a new one. A Lash Whip or Toxic Lash unit basically imposes -2 leadership and -1 combat attrition to an enemy unit in engagement range.
It's pretty cool.
It's cool.
It's niche.
It's very niche. Might not come up all that often because chances are what you're fighting is dead. But it's there. And it's kind of what we've seen with most 9th edition codexes. You've got 9 million stratagems and you're probably going to use 5 or 6 of them every game. And then the others might come up once in a blue. So there's a lot of like cool stratagems in there. Some of them are always going to be used, some of them not. This is fairly standard with 9th edition. What is also standard with 9th edition is the change to your paid upgrade abilities. So adaptive physiologies.
You're no longer paying command points for them, you're paying actual points for them.
Yeah, it means you also have to take a real Warlord trait as well.
Yes.
I
mean, the Warlord traits are significantly better now, so...
Which is good, and we'll get to them in a minute.
I'm not unhappy about that.
So yeah, you're paying points for them instead of CP. Most of them are quite cheap, some of them are very good, some of them are kind of, all right, they exist. Now here's the thing.
You can't put them on characters.
You.
Only put them on monsters.
Yes. Yeah,
but not on your characters.
Yeah, there's no unit
there's
ones
no
anymore.
infantry ones anymore.
So these are literally just to upgrade monsters.
Yes.
So
no super buffing your Hive Tyrant.
Yeah.
It has some nice interactions you can do with some of these. Things like Voracious Ammunition have changed very slightly. It's now it activates if you hit with your shooting rather than if you kill something with your shooting.
Some good little changes in there to help buff them up a little bit further from what was already a very well used mechanic. Like I say, I think some of them you probably won't see all that often, but some of them can be quite nasty.
Some of them I would say are you consider it when you're putting your list together. Others are I have a spare 10 points.
Yeah, I got 10
Let's
points.
Put
I'll give someone Synaptic
enhancement.
Yeah.
For 10 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, because that will give you the Synapse keyword, the Shadow in the Warp, the Synapse ability, and thus, because they're Synapse, they're eligible for the Synaptic link. So, which, as we've established, is a really important tool to have active. So even just having that on, say, a Morlock that's going to pop
up away from everything else. All of a sudden, you've increased your Synaptic link range. You've got abilities on a different side of the board.
Plus your Synaptic imperatives as well. So it's a good little tool. Like you say, if you've got some points spare, you're probably going to use them. Now we mentioned Warlord traits. Oh wow, they're much better.
Yeah, wow. I actually want to take Warlord traits now because I did not before.
Yeah, so there's massive changes to these. Massive changes.
So much better. I mean, Alien Cunning, for example. Your Warlord has OBSEC and counts as 5 models. Okay.
What did it used to do? He could redeploy.
He could, yeah, your Warlord could redeploy, and that was it. Oh, and also your Warlord can perform an action even if it advanced or fell back.
Yeah, you might not do that one all that often.
If you put it on a prime.
Yeah, maybe because there's a few like infantry actions, like raising a banner or stuff like that that infantry can do. But OBSEC and 5 models is very good.
It's pretty sweet.
Heightened senses, fight first and reroll hits in combat. Yeah, you want to make a melee monster, that's the guy. And then you've got some really good support abilities as well.
Direct guidance, you add one to your hit roll.
For a core unit though.
For a core unit.
But that's shooting and melee, so your warriors, your Carnifex, you even just on your Termagants or Hormagaunts, you suddenly go hit on freeze. That's some scary nasty stuff. And adaptive biology is a 5-up shrug. So if you want a little bit of defense, you got a little bit of defense in there.
I do like my unkillable monsters.
Yes, and no one else does, apart from those that have lots of big Gribblies and or are looking at buying lots of big Gribblies. Yes. Your Hive Mind discipline, your powers. So
a lot of these are very similar. There are some small changes.
Catalyst is a 5-up shrug unless you're Titanic, then it's a 6-up.
Okay.
But otherwise, you know, they're the same. Paroxysm is no longer fight last on a unit. That is a significant change. But it is -1 to wound in the melee attacks. Yeah. And no Overwatch, no set to defend. Cool.
Psychic Scream and Onslaught are
pretty much
as far as I can tell the same. And then you've got Neuroparasite, which is a new one, which I quite like.
Yeah,
I think it's a nifty one. So what you do, it's warp charge at 7, select one enemy unit within Synaptic link range of the Psyker or within 18 inches of the Psyker itself, and you roll a d6 for each model in the unit. For every dice that exceeds that model's toughness, take mortal wound to a maximum of 6.
And that's one of the things that's pretty much across the board in all the Psychic powers apart from Psychic Scream is they affect in Synaptic link range or a set range. So your debuffing and zappy powers will have a set range as well as Synaptic link. Catalyst Onslaught will affect only the things within Synaptic link. So if you're not utilizing the Synaptic link, you actually have a shorter range than you used to. But if you're utilizing the Synaptic link, you're just going to hit pretty much everything on the board.
Let me tell you, you really should be taking advantage of that Synaptic link. It is so powerful.
That's a very good roll. Relics are another one that have been an odd one with Tyranid players in the past because they were kind of just there.
Yeah, a lot of them were so specific, specific to models or specific to weapons or specific to models with specific weapons. Yeah. They were almost, you weren't really taking them. There were just like 2 or 3 that you would take, usually for psychic buffing ones.
Yeah.
It's still the case. There's still a lot of for like specific weapons or specific models or specific upgrades, but they've improved the ones that you can take. They've just gotten a little bit of a glow up.
Yeah, and there's a couple of really good ones in here, and like just again quality of life changes. So the Yimgal factor you pick now.
Yeah, you don't have to roll.
You don't have to roll for it. Yeah. Resonance Barb is pretty much the same. +1 psychic and no power. you know, and then there's things which have been, that, you know, they've been given a boost. So things like the Maw Claws of Fire Axe is now, you don't need to be, it's not like special monstrous rending claws. It's on any model that's a character, +1 attack, reroll wound rolls, and +1 attack each time you destroy a unit in combat. That's
up to
really
a maximum
good.
of 3.
Yeah, but that's on top of your already existing +1. So you can get, if you kill 3 units, you've got +4 attacks. So yeah, and there's a couple of new ones.
I'm gonna mention my favourite new one just because it's hilarious.
It's okay.
Gestation Sack. Once per battle, you can perform the following action. Bursting the sack. At the start of your shooting phase, this model can start to perform this action. It's completed at the end of that phase. When it's completed, set up a new Ripper Swarm unit on the battlefield within 3 inches of this model, not within engagement range of any enemy units. That unit contains D3 + 1 Rippers. And you don't have to put that in your list. Like that, you can just have those for free.
Yeah, they don't take up reinforcement points. Yeah, okay, so slight tangent here, there's a shock.
Please take it away.
That relic, and a lot of the relics in here, realistically, are the same as stratagems. Why do they exist? Yeah. This could have been either something a lot more interesting, or it could have just been removed. Same with a lot of the stratagems. Like, why did we have 4 pages of stratagems? We could reduce those down to 2 pages of stratagems that everyone uses anyway. Like, there could be a lot of tightening up with stuff like that, but it is fitting with the trend and the theme of the 9th edition codexes. So I'm not surprised. It's just one of those, okay, like, you exist. Cool. Good for you, you little bag of bugs. You know what? I would allow it if it was not a more like a Trigon Prime, but you replace one of its scythes with a little shopping bag. you know those the little dogs that you get in the bag, but it's Ripper Swarms, like outside of a little handbag or something. Yeah. So those are your kind of extra bits which can zhuzh up your units a bit more. We've touched upon all of the other stuff, but now we're going to look at the units themselves, and the Hive Mind has been busy.
We have been blessed.
With much biomass.
Yes.
So much biomass.
Oh my god, there's too much biomass.
Rubbing your hands with glee over the biomass. Yes, so there's been quite a lot of substantial unit changes. We're not going to go over every single one because, again, we'd be here forever. But as a general rule of thumb, Tyranids are actually scary now. In terms of their
should be.
Like they should be. Yes, no, don't get me wrong. They absolutely should be. I've been saying for ages, why is a Hive Tyrant so rubbish? Well, not anymore. Not so much anymore. So as a general rule of thumb, most things pretty much across the board have gotten an extra save, an extra point of save, sometimes an extra wound, sometimes an extra point of toughness, usually an extra attack. Yeah. Better weapon skill, better ballistic skill. So there's not a lot of weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4 monsters anymore. They're all pretty much weapon skill 3. Finally, it's all good changes in terms of what they should be. Yeah, it
was always things that, like in the 8th edition Codex, playing it particularly in 9th, I was like, why is a warrior ballistic skill 4?
Yeah, why?
Why is that? Why is a warrior toughness 4?
Why is a Carnifex weapon skill 4?
Yeah.
It's all good quality of life changes, and that goes across to the weapons as well. Like D3 damage, as you'd expect, is now just like damage 2 or damage 3. You know, D3 shots, it's now like 3 shots. There's also been a lot of interesting changes in terms of D6 shots, and now like D3 + 3.
Yes, which is better.
It is better because it's a better curve.
Yep.
It's the similar issue that we see with Dark Lances, though, where you just go, why not just make it 4 shots?
Yeah.
Why not just make it like just make it the average? It doesn't need to swing so much, and then that way you know exactly what you're getting. Yeah. Or make it a little bit less reliable. So, for example, the Stranglethorn Cannon is heavy D3 + 3. Just make it 2D3, or just make it 3 shots, or just make it 4 shots. Like, you know, I would rather see stuff be brought down rather than bringing everything up, but this is definitely a bring everything up codex.
Oh yes, indeed.
So some of the big changes are your are to weapons as well, in terms of weapon loadouts. You can't take nearly as many options anymore.
No, which is
it's in the box.
Take what's in the box. For example, Winged Hive Tyrant, you can no longer take the wings and 2 sets of weapons.
Yeah, although he does attack with his feet now.
Which is pretty sweet, so that kind of makes up for it.
Yeah.
I will say Scything Talons no longer give you reroll 1s to hit.
Nope.
That is a pretty big change. What does instead is a Lash Whip.
which makes sense because you've gone, it's easier to hit you now because you're tangled. But they will always give you an extra attack, and they give you an extra attack per talon now.
Yep, so if you got two extra attacks. It's pretty sweet.
So for other things like Hormagaunts, it's not that they have Scything Talons and then you've got to add on 2 extra attacks for each Scything Talon. They just have 3 attacks. Like
that's their base.
Again, there's some quality of life changes to make working things out a bit easier. Where the big changes come in are the overall survivability of things. So your walking Hive Tyrant is now toughness 8 with a 2-up save.
As he should be.
He's a big beefy boy. 3-up invuns do not exist unless you're a Neurophrope. They still have it.
Good thing.
But they're also toughness 5 now, as are Zoanthropes, and have an extra wound. And there's a lot of extra rules that have been put on to things. So stuff like the Hive Tyrant now actually commands the swarm.
It's pretty good.
Cool.
As he should.
So the Will of the Hive Mind ability, you pick a core unit within Synaptic link range. This is a running theme, as mentioned, and give them reroll 1s to hit. Now, because this is a command sort of phase pick an ability, it's not like a big aura like that anymore. But it's still something better than they had, which was
much better.
Nothing.
Yeah. The Swarmlord does the same, but it's 4 rerolls because Chapter Master.
And he doesn't have the double move anymore. He instead gives units OBSEC.
Which is still good. Oh, and also he still has a 4-up invuln, and the first time you fail a saving throw against a melee attack, each turn the damage characteristic is changed to 0.
Yeah, so he can parry a Knight Chainblade, which is quite impressive.
I mean, he's the Swarmlord. He should be a beast.
Yes, it's true. Yes. Really, like Neurophrotes, like Tyranids, like they've all received very similar upgrades. They've all basically gone up in attacks and general survivability in some way, shape or form, but not really in points, which we'll get to.
Trigon Prime is now HQ.
Yeah, and has 12 attacks. But again, it's one of those ones where I go, like, how many attacks did they have before? Like 6? I'm sorry, they've got like 18 limbs.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah, I mean, the Scything Talons are damage 2, not 3 now. They were damage 3. I'm pretty sure.
I think they were D6 because they were massive.
Oh yeah, they were D6, weren't they?
Yeah,
but
now it's 12 attacks at strength 7 minus 3 damage 2, which is pretty gnarly. And again, this is where the sort of the quality of life changes come in. These are Trigon Scything Talons, so you don't go, how many Scything Talons do you have? I've got 18 Scything Talons plus 1 attack for each one, because it's less to work out. It makes it nice and simple.
Warriors have had a royal glow up, and they're pointed appropriately, right, Chef?
We'll come back to them. So stats-wise, again, as you'd expect,
they've had a glow up.
More consistent in terms of accuracy, tougher, same amount of wounds, still a 4-up save, just better stats on their weapons as well.
Yeah, so 3-up weapon skill, 3-up ballistic skill, strength 5, toughness 5, all standard. The only weapon you have to pay for is the Venom Cannon. Everything else you can just choose for free. Yep. So you've got your Bone Swords, which are strength 7 minus 2 damage. Oh, and if you put Adrenal Glands, which is 25 points to put it on an entire unit, that becomes strength 8.
It's not that much. It's
Adrenal
15.
Glands. Oh, Adrenal Glands are only 15 points, aren't they?
Yeah, see, a weird design choice here, because it's one of the few times in recent memory where you buy an upgrade for a unit rather than for a model.
It's very strange because especially because
it gives you
it's 3 to 9.
It basically gives you a discount for having more models in the unit, which they didn't need.
No.
They don't. We'll come back to Tyranid Warriors.
Okay, we'll come back to the Warriors.
Termagants they've already previewed. We've all seen what the Flesh Borer does. It's silly. Hormagaunts are super fast. Lots of attacks, low strength, low weapon skill, but lots of them. Gargoyles are troops.
So fast flying Flesh Borer troops.
Yes. Gene Sealers are not troops anymore. They are elites.
As they should be. They are Vanguard
Never
units.
made any sense. Toxicrene. All the big monsters have basically received more wounds, higher toughness, and occasionally a higher save. The Toxicrene has it. It's now
fun abilities too. Yeah,
really cool abilities. Will stop you from falling back. Does -1 in an aura. They've previewed most of the Toxicrene. Tyrant Guard. Yeah, bodyguards for Hive Tyrants. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it does make sense. That's what they used to.
Yeah, but there needs to be a time where, again, this is a super fluffy book, but there needs to come a time where fluff takes a back seat to
Or
balance.
you just take a rule out. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
We just take it out, and then it's not that the rule isn't fluffy, because the rule doesn't exist.
Yes. Yes.
Lictors and Death Leapers.
Lictors and the Death Leaper, they're the best assassins in the game.
And they're really cheap.
And they're super cheap. You're not going to use them for, I mean, you weren't using them for things like retrieve and engage anymore because of the changes to the GT pack.
But they have some
they
pretty
murder.
nasty abilities.
The Maleceptor.
He can be useful for the Synaptic Imperative. He's still a psychic beast.
Yeah, and also has a very, so if they do a psychic action, it's warp charge 6. They get a 6-inch aura of -1 strength from the attack. This used to be a stratagem, it's now rolled into their rules, but you need to do a psychic action to do so. But every time they do a psychic action, units within, all enemy units within 12?
Each time this model successfully manifests a psychic power or completes an action, if the result was 7 or more, after resolving the psychic power, the closest enemy unit within 12 suffers the number of mortal wounds shown in the table below. Yeah. So, and then it degrades as your Maleceptor gets wounded. Makes sense.
Yeah, so he's a sort of a buffer, he's a big...
Psychic lash.
He's a psychic bubble of nastiness, like, he's really cool. And I can see him being used because there's a lot of really nifty things that you can do with the Maleceptor.
Now, Zoanthropes had a sit there. Okay. We've already talked about how they're likely to be auto-takes based on the Synaptic Imperative ability. I was already taking a squad of 6 Zoanthropes before this Codex because of the extra mortal wound output they had, and they've made it stronger. Each time they attempt to manifest a smite or a witchfire psychic power, you add 1 to the test for each model in the unit. Oh, so what am I super smiting on, Chef?
5 if you got a 6.
I'm super smiting on 5.
I don't, like, why is it not capped? Why is it just for every model?
And then you do a smite, you add 1 to the number of mortal wounds suffered by the enemy unit for each model in this unit. So up to 3, that one is capped. But say you do a super smite on a 5, and then you roll a 6, that's 9 mortal wounds.
Why? And now they can only cast 1 power now?
Yes, so you could, I think it was if you had 6 in the unit, you could cast 2, which would usually be a smite and a psychic scream, because you'd have them as your really offensive psychic power, psychic monsters. But I don't really care about missing out on a psychic scream if I get just set +3 to my smites.
Yeah.
So when we said like Tyranids, movement, yes. Psychic, yes. Shooting, yes. Combat, yes.
Yeah. Gene Sealers are now pretty different. Yeah. They now infiltrate rather than advance and charge.
Sweet.
But that is pretty devastating if you win the roll off of turn 1.
You have an 8-inch movement and you can deploy 9 inches away from your enemy.
Yes.
I'm charging anything I want turn 1, if I get turn 1.
Yeah, they're not quite as good as the pure strain G-Sealers and G-Sealer Cult. They're not weapon skill 2, and they only have a 4-up invuln against melee. They have a 5-up otherwise. So they're not as good, but they can also start 9 inches away. So again, if you get turn 1, your opponent's going to have a bad time. Ripper Swarms are probably never going to be used again, mainly because they're not troops anymore.
Yeah, they're fast attack, so why?
I mean, it's so that you don't just fill up on Ripper Swarms.
No, I mean as in like, so why would you take it?
Yes. The next one is the
Parasite.
New boy.
The only new unit in this Codex.
Yes. They've pretty much previewed him.
Yeah,
He's an interesting one.
He's fun.
Yeah, he's a sort of pseudo debuffer, stroke assassin, stroke. He's a Synapse. You know, he is a character, so you can't be.
He does have a Synaptic Imperative ability. He's just an interesting choice. I think he's going to be fun to play.
Yeah. But he's definitely one of those ones where I think once your opponent, like, you're probably going to lose him after you've done what he wants to do. So, you know, fine, but he's cheap.
He's a new model.
Morlock is a fast attack now. He has changed quite significantly.
All of the mortal wound shenanigans.
he eats things and burrows and doesn't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff. It's the terror from the deep is similar, but now it works like an orbital bombardment type ability. So you place a marker, then next turn he arrives and does the mortal wounds rather than deep striking normally.
He has distensible jaws, so each time he's selected to fight, you select 1 enemy unit within engagement range and roll a d6. On a 2 to 5, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they suffer 3. And if any models are destroyed as a result of the mortal wounds, the enemy unit counts as being below half strength for the purpose of combat attrition.
Yeah, so because he just goes, ow. He
That's
is, I mean,
often
he is
what
a
I do.
sandworm, so, you know, yeah. So that's, you know, and again, he's received your standard, like, he's got like 4 extra wounds.
Yeah, 14
like,
wounds, 16 attacks. 16.
but he is only -1 damage 1.
Yep.
So, you know, he is an infantry blender. So he's got a bit of a weird role because you want to use the mortal wounds to go and eat like really tough things, but then he goes, with my piddly little claws. I mean, it's still 16 attacks at strength 7 -1 damage 1. So, you know, he can do some damage.
Yep.
The Trigon, very similar to the Trigon Prime, just not a Synapse.
Yeah.
The spores do mortal wounds. They're spores.
They're spores. What do you expect? Exocrine, so you no longer have the double shoot if you are stationary.
Instead, you ignore cover.
Instead, you ignore cover if you're either stationary or have moved less than half of your move characteristic.
Yeah, it's one of those abilities where I go, that's cool. Doesn't need to exist with a strength 8 AP4 damage-free gun with 6+ D3 shots.
Yeah, so his gun has gotten a big glow up.
Yeah, you can't.
It's blast now.
You can't fire twice, but you're getting an average of 8 shots with +1 damage, +1 strength, and +1 AP.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll be fine. Oh, and you're already ballistic skill 3 base now.
Yeah, not 4 +
You'll
1
be
if
fine.
you don't.
So, yeah.
You'll be okay.
Carnifexes, though, the
Carnifexes
iconic beast.
And all Carnifex variations. We'll throw them all in together.
Yes.
Why not? For the most part,
Eefy.
Yeah, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, fine. They are all strength 6, toughness 7, and 9 wounds. Yes.
Yep, they got an extra wound.
Yep.
Oh, and an extra save.
Yep.
And a built-in -1.
Yep. 4 attacks unless you're a screamer killer when you get 10.
Yeah, at strength 6, -3 damage free. Strength 7 if you go for adrenal glands, which you will.
Yes, you absolutely will.
Yeah. They all get +1 attack on the turn that they charge now, or heroically intervene if you're able to do that. With there's various rules which enable you to do that, rather than +1 to hit. They don't do the mortal wounds anymore because those are kind of stratagems now. Yeah, and a lot of their other stuff is pretty much the same. So, you know, they've got upgrades to give them cover, or, you know, extra tail attacks, things like that. You know, the basic one has guns and chopping, or all chopping. The Screamer Killer is a melee. The Formback is a shooty. So yeah, they're kind of, they are as they are. Hive Guard, bye.
Yeah, they got a glow down, but they needed it because they were literally just used as a crutch with the 8th edition Codex to try and carry us through.
They're still very
good. Now they're actually designed around what they should be doing. So the shot cannon should have always been the anti-tank, and the impaler cannon should have always been the anti-infantry.
Yes.
Now they've actually made that what it is.
Yeah.
So instead of having 2 shots with your impaler cannon and being able to
always fire out sun line of sight at 36-inch range.
It's now 24-inch range. It's 3 shots, strength 6, AP2, 2 damage, so it's no longer strength 8, AP2.
It was strength 8, AP2, but D3.
D3.
Yeah.
And you can shoot out of line of sight, but your target has to be visible to a Synapse creature.
Yeah. And you always ignore light cover.
Yeah.
In addition,
which is what it
if you're firing a ranged attack against an enemy unit that is visible to a Synapse model, you ignore hit and ballistic skill modifiers.
That's pretty nice.
So you've got, you know, that's the thing. They work with like a spotter, which is how a lot of like
it makes sense. It's fluffy.
It is fluffy. Then you get some weird stuff like making them count as free models on an objective as an action instead of moving. Again, it's one of those rules where no one was asking for it.
Why do we need this?
No one would miss it if it didn't exist. It's just kind of there. They're not obsec. I mean, then they're not core. So you can't make them obsec with the Swarm Lord.
Unless the stratagems are...
Oh, because there's a Leviathan stratagem, isn't there? Yeah.
To make something obsec.
Yeah. Which you suddenly go, cool, each one counting as 3 models at toughness 6 with 4 wounds and a free up save is quite hard to shift. Just feels a bit kind of unnecessary. But also, you're paying like 50 points base for them, 60 points for the Impaler. So, you know. Tyrannofexes, they've kind of previewed a lot of their stuff. The Tyrannocyte is still a fleshy drop pod.
Yep.
Again, it's just gotten more wounds. The Hive Crone is still kind of a shooty, fly, choppy kind of thing. The Harpy is really good now because comes with 2 heavy venom cannons and bombs, which are good bombs as well. And the Sporocyst is again, it's a big fleshy fortification which expands Synapse and launches mines everywhere. So look, there are a lot of changes, and we've gone through as much as we can, as quick as we can. But suffice it to say, most of your stuff has gotten better, and you've gotten some quality of life changes. You know what you've not gotten? More expensive for it. So, points.
Where are your issues? Where are your main problems?
So quite a lot of the stuff is actually the same points or very slightly increased. Like I know there's so things like the termagants have gone up to 7 points.
Yep.
And one of their main draws was being a super cheap,
But they're also better.
they're slightly tougher, can get access to some very strong buffs and much more killing. You got to pay for those kinds of upgrades, right? That makes sense. That's how you would balance things with the points.
Yes.
You go, this is a good, and then you got the good upgrade, and then you pay the more points for it. So why didn't it happen with the warriors?
So warriors are 25 points base.
Why?
The only weapon you have to pay to upgrade them with is a venom cannon or the barbed strangler, which, okay, fine, you're taking literal cannons at that point. When you want to take adrenal glands to give them an extra inch of movement and strength when they're already pretty powerful, I mean, that makes them strength 8 with the dual bone swords.
Yeah.
It's 15 points for a unit.
Yeah.
They are a synapse unit, so you can bounce your synaptic imperatives or your synaptic link abilities through them. You can bounce your psychic powers through them. They are tougher. You take them in something like Leviathan. You can only wound them on 4s.
Yeah.
They can take down quite a lot with their combat now.
And their shooting is still really good. Because you go, I'll take dual bone swords, and adrenal glands.
So that's a strength 8. That's I think 4 attacks at that
4
point, because
attacks.
you get an extra if you take the dual bone swords.
At -2 damage too.
It's 2 damage too.
I've also got a death spitter, so I've got a free shot, strength 5, -2 damage, 1 gun at 24-inch range on each.
Yep.
For another 5 points on 3 of them, I'll take 3 venom cannons. So I've got a little bit of anti-tank and anti-heavy infantry punch on my way in.
Yeah.
I've got my adrenal glands on there. You know what? For another 5 points, I'll take some flesh hooks so I can just climb up walls with no penalty. That's cool, right? In addition, there's a stratagem which allows them to use the flesh hooks to get +1 to hit in combat. Sure, why not, right?
Some hitting on 2s.
For 5 points per unit, okay? There you go. Oh, that's pretty scary. Now, admittedly, they don't have an invuln. You can give them an invuln
with
via
the zoanthropes.
the zoanthropes. That unit, toughness 5, 3 wounds. A 4-up save, admittedly, so AP will tear through them, but their offensive output is pretty scary.
And they're 3 wounds, so you take a big squad of 9, they're still going to
take
-1
some damage strat.
-1 damage strat for them. They're still going to take some chewing through before you get them into combat, and then just the output they have is really strong. They feel undercosted.
Why is that 260 points, everyone? It's just a bit much. And you kind of see that across the board with certain units. Things like the Screamer Killers with their 10, was it 10 attacks?
10 attacks from the Screamer Killer.
Were they 115?
115, which is, where's the base? Base con effects is 100 points. So for 15 points, not only are you getting everything that the Screamer Killer has access to, you're getting an extra 6 attacks on top of that.
It's
a lot of things just feel very cheap.
Yes, yes they do.
So I'm looking at lists I'm writing at the moment. I'm putting them onto trays. Like, this is a lot of it doesn't feel like a lot for Tyranids because I haven't gone crazy swarmy yet. But I also look at the output I have with that, and it feels a bit much.
Yeah, I'm looking at them the same way that I'm looking at like Tower lists, where I go, it doesn't feel like I actually have a huge amount, and then you kind of look at it like in terms of stats, and you go, oh, I'm doing so much. Like, and that's not just in terms of like damage output, but more so than Tower, because they've got combat, they've got psychic,
they've got shooting, they've got the movement. You've got, Termagants are still quite cheap, so you can still, and they are very they can do a lot of damage output now, so you're taking lots of squads of 30. You can, and I found this, you can really move out into the board with all of that movement that you've gotten. And I mean, there is no reason why with a good Tyranid list you can't score a crazy amount of points, and you're also able to do that while doing the damage output. So it's a very strong book is what we're saying.
There's a lot of stuff that just feels kind of, I mean, look, I'll say it. It feels like version 1 of AdMech. It's incredibly complicated if you're a new coder.
The amount
if you're
of
a new
rules
player.
you can layer upon each other make the Codex so strong that you can pretty much do whatever you want with it.
You've got a huge amount of variety, huge amount of flavor. And again, I love the idea of a Codex that's varied and flexible, but it doesn't feel like you're paying much of a cost for it.
It just feels powerful.
Yes. I am on the side of it's undercosted for what they do because I want them to be scary. I mean, look at them.
Yeah.
They would be terrifying.
When you're looking at the stats feel right.
Oh,
the
feel like
abilities
Nids
feel
do.
right. I have been so excited since getting my hands on this Codex because it feels like Tyranids. And I'm excited to play Tyranids again rather than like, oh, I've got to take these things, otherwise I'm going to die turn 2 and this isn't fun. It just feels too cheap.
Yeah.
This feels a little bit too cheap.
It's such a shame as well because it's one of those things where I think it's going to be similar for a lot of Tau players where they're going to be like, I've been waiting for this for so long. And they're going to play like one game and go, yeah, no, I feel like my army operates. And then you're going to play another game and go, this feels just too good.
These people don't be mean to me for playing with a really good Codex because I'm so excited to play with it and I don't want it to be broken.
Oh, genius. Like, no, like this is the thing. I never want to see a broken Codex. And I don't think this is a broken Codex in terms of what we've seen.
I don't think it's the abilities that are the problem. I think it's the cost.
Tyranid, this book, like I say, is super fun. There's synaptic links and the imperatives, like the overriding command of the Hive. You feel like you are the Hive Mind guiding the bugs.
It really does.
It's really cool. And you go, this is a giant monster. Is it scary in combat? Oh, it's really scary in combat.
So fun to play.
And
it's not going to be fun against certain codexes because it's just going to be like, well, I'm not actually getting anything out of this because I'm just dominating.
Yeah, it's going to be like, you know, I mean, I don't think it's going to be quite to the level of the Tau, which is, or the early AdMech, or early Drakari, where the firepower was so blistering that it's like you're tabled in turn 2. Like,
I don't know. I don't think this is going to necessarily cause that kind of tabling, but what it does do is put output while scoring points really, really fast.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to be like, well, I've like ramped up so many points.
Yeah. I think from a design perspective, it's a really well done book. It evokes the fluff, it evokes the scariness that these things should have. You're active in multiple phases. You've got
which you should be.
A huge amount of variety in army builds, real good flexibility, which is again super evocative of the fluff. I just don't feel that you're paying the appropriate points for it.
But we'll see what happens as we go along with this Codex. Who knows what changes might come with data slates and balances.
Yeah, you made a very interesting point when we were talking about this the other day, sort of, you know, whilst we were prepping for this.
It's an interesting point.
Eventually what's going to happen with this book is all the Tyranid armies are going to look the same.
Yep.
Because you're going to go, I need that synaptic imperative, I need that, and I'm never going to run those because this unit's better. And to be honest, that's the same with pretty much
most armies will settle on a competitive list, and that will change as balanced data slates come out, or someone discovers a new combination that no one had thought of, or they try and do something that goes against what the current meta is. So it will change with those. But I think your core armies with the Tyranids, at least for the first couple of months, they're going to look very, very similar.
Yeah, they're all going to look very similar, which has its upsides and downsides. Yeah. From like a casual player perspective, if you're going to run like a mixed army of stuff, which again is how I would advocate you generally run armies, because then they look like an army, you're going to have a really good time because your stuff...
I'm so excited to like just do random stuff with this, because I've been stuck playing the same army list for so long.
Yeah, because you had to.
Because I had to. So I'm really excited to, not only for myself to play lots of different stuff, but to be able to show off all the different stuff and really show off what Tyranids can do, because it feels like they've been really misrepresented as of late. Yeah,
they've really received a glow up, and like I say, I think from coming at it from like a design point of view and looking at the way that the Codex is built and put together, it is like, it's a super cool Codex.
Yes.
I think from an accessibility point, it is way too complicated, but unfortunately this is nothing new with 9th edition. It is what it is, for good or for ill. That's the kind of scenario that we found ourselves in at the moment. And I think it's going to cause a lot of upset in terms of the competitive scene, because certain builds are going to be very scary. But if you're going to go, you know what, I'm going to take Carnifexes because they're my favorite model. Great. There's a lot of variety, there's a lot of flexibility in the book. I like the book from a design point of view. I'm a bit apprehensive in terms of a balance point of view.
Well, we will see.
But we'll see, because things change, and they change a lot, and they change constantly. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below. Are you excited to join the Great Devourer? Are you finally happy that your summons have been heard and you have joined the biomass? Are you absolutely terrified of what you're about to face on the battlefield, as most guardsmen would be?
Gribble, gribble.
Let us know in the comments below. Keep the hobby, love, and conversation going. Thanks for coming along this far. Hope you've enjoyed that. There will be plenty of battle reports and more videos to come on the Tyranids and ways that can be used to deal with them, as well as to crush them beneath your boot heel and or crush others between your chitinous forms.
Thank you.
I've been Chef. She has been Jinx. You've been Bosses, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
It's, ooh.
What's happening?
Oh, wow, that was a big one.
The sneeze has overtaken him. It's the Hive Mind.
The synaptic sneeze.